Hey guys, so in this video I'm going to try to reveal what are seelies, dragons, vishaps, hypostasis, filling in some of those blanks that I kind of hinted at in my last video, the Genshin Impact completely explained video, as well as I'm going to try to explain some things that were in question by Fiona Spear in HoYoLABs regarding that video as well, and Genshin in comparison to Gnosticism. Okay, so one thing that was in question was, why did Sophia create the Archons? And I know that I didn't claim that Sophia created the Archons. However, in some versions of Gnosticism, it does kind of claim that she made them. However, I don't think in Genshin they're going with that version, because I don't think that that's actually what that version means anyway. I think it means that the cause and effect of her actions led to the creation of the Archons. Kind of how it also says that she's our creator and our mother, but she didn't actually create us, or how it says that the overall God is also our creator and our father, but he didn't make us with his own two hands. It was indirectly. It's the whole chain, the cause and effect that led to our creation, by him being at the top of the pyramid and her being somewhere in the middle, sure, but not directly caused by it. And in Genshin in particular, it says that the primordial one, which would translate as the demiurge if all of this is correct, was the one who created the shades, the first archons. But let's move on to explaining exactly why she created the demiurge. How did this come to be? I'm gonna tell the origin story, as well as it will explain all of these creatures that I said I was going to explain in this section. So anyway, in the very beginning, before our world existed, before the demiurge and stuff like that, there were beings already in existence. There was a pair of gods at the top of this pyramid. That is the true primordial one. And then there's 30 aeons, and these things are like angel beings. But there's a lot of different types of angels. The further back in the scripture of that religion or mythology you look at, the further back you go, the more detailed and the more depth they have. While in the later eras, like if you open a Bible today, it's gonna be very simple, and it's gonna, like, they box everything together so much that they become indecipherable from one another, when they are in truth very different creatures with very different tasks, very different abilities, and they look extremely different than one another. But I'm gonna explain all that here because these creatures are in Genshin. So in Gnosticism and most versions of this family of type of mythos, they all share a similar root. That being of the three original beings, the first one made of pure light, which are the angels, all of the category of them, which would be better known as aeons. Next is the jinn. They're made of smokeless fire. There's multiple different categories of them as well. Lastly is mankind, which is obviously made of mud, dirt, the earth. But let's explain the aeons, because that's the part of the story we're up to. So breaking down the angel categories, or breaking down the aeon categories, first one I want to talk about is the cherubim. They're supposed to have 4 heads, but I think that's a metaphor, so hang on. And they have 6 wings, which is something we've seen in Genshin, which is exactly what I was hinting at and implying in my first Genshin Impact completely explained video, which I was saying that Genshin itself is trying to mislead you into believing that this side is the good side and that side is the bad side, by your own pre-notions of like dragons are evil kind of thing. This is not what happened in Gnosticism. However, this is specifically what I think Genshin is doing just to confuse us a bit. Some of the clues are that some of the dragons have 6 wings, just like the cherubim have. The dragons are made of pure light, pure energy, just like the aeons are. The aeons and the dragons both existed before the demiurge did. All of this implies to me that what would have normally been just cherubims are now turned into dragons. It was just to confuse you a bit, but that's what they actually are. Also, a quick note, in the vision decree, the visions were being put on the wings of the statue. And why is this even relevant? It's because cherubims also are supposed to have eyes all over their wings. And on the statue, they're putting the visions' eyes all over the wings. If you're not following, let me explain really quick, because in the previous video I claimed that the world we currently live in basically recycles all forms of life, all data, all material, just like it's supposed to be in Gnosticism. So that the dragons in Genshin, which would be cherubims in this mythology, got recycled. And what did they get recycled into? I think they got recycled into the archons. The most powerful things of this element got turned into the next most powerful thing in this element. Therefore, maybe subconsciously, this is why the Raiden put the visions on the wings of the statue. But it also explains that the archons have 3 names each, right? And people may be like, what the heck's that about? But it's also, remember, the cherubim have 4 faces, they have 4 heads. The archons have 3, but you could easily give each one of those archons an angelic name as well to go along with the other ones, having a total of 4. But then that would be too on the nose. A quick note is that in the Battle Pass fairy tale, those guards that are standing next to the king protecting him, those would also be cherubim. Also, another being has 6 wings in Genshin, which would be the traveler and their sibling, which shouldn't really come as a surprise to you, because in my other videos I kept claiming that the travelers come from the realm of light. They are sent down to perform this task, so they are an Aeon as well. However, they're not a cherubim, they're a seraphim, because seraphim are supposed to be very bright, as in illuminating, and they also have 6 wings as well. But who I think the traveler is in the original mythology of Gnosticism may have started off as a seraphim. They are a lot more than that by the end, but one step at a time. The third type of Aeon or angel that's in this spear, because I think I forgot to mention this, but there's 3 spears, 3 courts of angels, right? Like, let's just call them moons. There's 3 types. And inside of each one of them, there's a different group that has different jobs, and they look different than one another. But part of this first set, there's one more Aeon that I haven't named. And this type is called the Ophium. And the Ophiums are supposed to be pretty freaky looking. They're basically wheels within wheels that are constantly turning. I think Genshin's interpretation of this was the hypostasis, which they are not wheels within wheels, but they are cubes within cubes that are constantly rotating. They are said to have eyes all around them, implying that they can see in every single direction possible. As well as in the center of them, it's supposed to be illuminated with different types of hues of light. But some weird things to note is the hypostasis can speak, in case you weren't aware, if this is all true. As well as, though all of the Aeons can change their form, however, the Ophiums themselves can combine with the other Ophiums to become something else. But if they ever do that, it's not some malicious thing. It's supposed to be that the true primordial one is coming down, and they're going to basically move his throne, you know, and his throne would be what? It would be Celestia. Unless, however, they also got kind of like brainwashed or corrupted, kind of like Sophia did and our sibling did. Perhaps they did too, and that's why they're hostile to us. So moving on to the next spear, and where are these spears exactly? Because let's say that Genshin is interpreting these as the moons. Well, one of them is supposed to be in the realm of light with the overall god, right? The second one is supposed to be in the heavens, and the third one is on the earth itself. And these are where these specific beings will reside in. So first Aeon inside of the second spear or moon, they're called the minions. These are kind of like, they kind of seem like the archons, like they rule over lesser archons, let's say, lesser angels or whatever, and they cast judgment upon the human whenever there's something that they need to cast judgment upon them for. They're also supposed to rule over certain parts of the world, each one of them, making them further seem like the original dragons that were on the earth and then recycled into the current archons. It makes sense. Perhaps I jumped the gun in titling what the dragons were, but my main point was just that they are Aeon in the broad spectrum. But all of the angels are Aeons. But if you want to be specific, yeah, perhaps I probably chose the wrong one. Perhaps this is the type that the dragons actually are. They are the Dominion, which is both a judge, but they also have mercy. They're not just ruthless dictators. One way to identify them is they have a golden rod in one hand and the symbol of the overall god in their other hand. The next aeons in the second sphere are called the virtuals, and they basically have control and say over the elements on the plane that is the earth. They also are supposed to, from the other religions that are similar to this, are supposed to do what Sophia's job is, which is basically what I implied as like giving you the vision. They're gifting you the ability to take arms. One way to identify them is they like to carry a white lily and a red rose, which kind of seems like Lumine's flower in her hair. But I'm starting to now think, now saying all of this out loud, it kind of seems like Genshin perhaps doesn't know all these little meticulous details out of each type of Aeon, and they just mixed it all together in one box, and they're just like, these are Aeon. All of these traits are within them, instead of them being specifically separated. I think that's what Genshin's doing, but I'm going to continue to separate these just so you know. The next Aeon in this second sphere is supposed to be called the powers. I guess that's how it'll be translated, and these guys are kind of like warrior class. Like, they're always geared with weaponry, and they're always ready to fight the good fight versus the opposing force, as well as they like to arm the people if they want to fight as well. So Dominion, powers, virtuals, all of this mixed together pretty much seems like the Archon, even if it's not just all three spheres are combined together, but just this one alone pretty much gives you a lot of detail of what the Archons in Genshin are about. Also, if a person manages to ascend to the next plane, one of them will personally escort you there. So next is the principalities, which is the first Aeon inside of the third sphere, the earthly sphere. And these kind of are supposed to rule over different dominions over the world as well. And you may be thinking that conflicts with the other thing. No, but these are below the other ones. The other ones have higher tier, and they command these guys and tell them what to do. And then these guys tell the people below them, the humans, what to do. As well as these guys could send messages from the mortals, the humans, up the chain to a higher tier, or to the overall god himself. These are the messengers. These guys tend to wear crowns, and they tend to give people the strength to fight back, to achieve their goals in trying times when they can. But it kind of seems like they're the ones giving visions, but a lot of these different Aeons all seem to be giving something that may be interpreted in Genshin's viewpoint as a vision, which may be why all of these together are just mixed together into one. All of these different tiers of Aeon are just, they don't care, they just categorize them all as one. Next, on the third sphere, which is supposed to be the one on the earth, is supposed to not exactly be a type of Aeon. It's not like a species of Aeon, it's more like a class of Aeon. And this one is supposed to be like the Archangel type of ones. How many exactly are there? Some think there's 1, some think there's 2, some think there's 7. These are supposed to be like the leaders of all of the angels overall, all of the Aeons overall, as well as they're supposed to be like an S-class warrior Aeon, right? This perhaps could be the main character, or perhaps it could be the 7 Archons. Like, I'm certain that Genshin is doing Gnosticism. I'm just not sure as to, did they separate this like I did here, or is this all just mixed together into one thing and they're all just Aeon? They're all just angel-like beings, or in Genshin, dragons and Archons, and that's it. There's no different classes between them. And the final tier of Aeon in the third sphere is just like a guardian angel, like literally what everybody thinks angel is this one. So continuing with the story in Gnosticism, you know, where I left off before I started talking about the Aeons, is because I was trying to explain the ranking, because where exactly is Sophia on this chart, right? Where is her rank? Because some people may think she's like really high tier, but in reality she is the newest Aeon. She is the baby to this family, right? And what happened was she fell in love with the overall primordial one, the real one, the monad. But she didn't really know what to do about this, and when she like averted her gaze, she ended up looking into a reflection that was below, and she thought it was him because she saw his reflection. So she went down, following that image, thinking that he would be down there when he's actually above. So she kept going lower and lower. However, she did have a counterpart. Each and every one of them has a counterpart, like another half, a soulmate kind of thing. This is us, the main character, and it's not exactly us in completion yet, but this is a piece of who we become. But Sophia's counterpart tried to stop her from going below, but it was in vain, and she got down there anyway. But when she went all the way down to the depths and out of the realm of light into the murky edges of the known, I don't know, universe I want to call it, but it's not really, she found out that it was just a reflection, and there's nothing really there but like the murky deep. This place was like nothing she had known. It was devoid of light and of gnosis. She felt scared, she felt sad, she felt alone and comfortless. But because she was an Aeon, one of these creatures of pure light, she's able to manifest things with her will, and in this case, accidentally. So what transpired next is she accidentally created a counterpart to keep her company. This was another version of the person before that was her counterpart. So in Genshin, this would be a duplicate of us, or in other words, a twin, making them the twin star. However, once this Aeon came into being, they weren't exactly born like the other Aeons. This one was born with some dark part of them. However, in a panic, they shed this dark part of themselves off and then kind of bolted towards the light above, while the shadowy version of themselves stayed behind. But in this moment of Sophia being abandoned by her counterpart that she just created, she basically broke down. She was distraught. She was said to have suffered every single type of psychic storm possible: fear, sorrow, passion, despair, and even ignorance. However, since she's able to create even accidentally, she was discharging this energy from herself, and it was concentrating into what became the earth, the fire, the water, and the air. As well as in this discharging, she accidentally created the demiurge. And in some versions it says she also created the archons. However, in some other versions it says that the demiurge created the archons. So which one is truly the case? It's kind of irrelevant. All that matters is what version is Genshin going to use or is using. So in Genshin, it claims that the demiurge created the shades, which would be the first archons. However, he also combated these creatures, which were the dragons. But what are the dragons in Gnosticism? Are they aeons that existed before? Or are they these beings that Sophia created, and therefore he defeated them and recycled them, and then those became the next tier of Archon? But the first few shades he made, the first few Archons, are Archons we're not even aware of yet. They are the kings of the underworld in Gnosticism. They are the kings of the abyss. They are the dark Archons. We have not seen them in Genshin yet, at least as far as me making this video, but they are going to have to be in Genshin eventually. So you see, Sophia is not the overall creator once you know the full story. She's actually very low tier in the whole Aeon spectrum. She has a very young mind for an Aeon, and that's why she made these mistakes. And if you don't know the rest of the story, it's in my Genshin Completely Explained video, as well as my Tree of Life videos. I also touch on that lightly there. Another question that was posed was understanding that Genshin is doing Gnosticism. Does this give us the ability to actually predict any things that are absolutely going to have to happen in Genshin? And it does, but only to a certain degree, because Genshin can take a lot of liberties to do whatever the hell they want for the most part. Why? Because it tells us the beginning of the story, which happened before we started to play. And it tells us the end of the story, which is when the game will be closed one day, hopefully no time soon. But in the meantime, there's all these countless centuries that will pass by. Because if you look at Gnosticism through the lens of the real world, right? It happened before we were created. And it will go all the way to the end of time when the apocalypse transpires and stuff like that, right? Well, but what about all of the countless years of humanity ruling on Earth? What happens there? That's untold story that Genshin could just fill in with whatever they want to do. And it's free reign because there's not really much explained here. There's just the gist of what's supposed to be happening. So I'll give you a quick summary of what's supposed to transpire at the end of time, which I already explained in my other video, but I'll just lightly touch on it here. It's supposed to be once we reclaim Sophia and we take her through all of the stages of regaining her gnosis to becoming enlightened again. Once she eventually reaches the climax of that, she divides herself into two. One to go back to the realm of light where she belongs, and the other to basically help the people of the world, to guide them so they can get out of this trap that the demiurge has set up for them. So throughout the whole game, we should be just trying to help the people and fight the forces of darkness and fight his control over the people, while in the meantime Sophia would be giving people visions one by one, recruiting them into her army to fight the forces of darkness, until one day basically the whole world wakes up at once, the remaining people. In that moment, everyone would realize Sophia's kingdom and they would start to head towards it, where they'll be greeted by the twin angels, which would be us and as well as Sophia, and you would gain access to the plane of light. That's basically the end of the world. That would be how Genshin would close. So we can see how Genshin will end, but we are not going to see every single detail and events in the meantime, and Genshin could just play with any mythology they want and add their own story anywhere in between. We only know these big points and what these creatures are, but that's not telling us every single event that's going to happen. Even the end war, where there's supposed to be like 7 archangels around the throne aiding us in, saving the world or saving the people, we don't exactly know who those archangels are. Like Genshin could make one of the dark archons change sides and flip to our side, or one of our guys betray us and turn to theirs. Perhaps even the pyro one or something dies and someone like Alice takes over as pyro archon. We don't know what's gonna happen. We only know there would be 7 with us in the end, so it's very vague details. Some other random things to throw in here. I already hinted at that perhaps the 3 moons or the 3 spheres where the aeons reside in. Perhaps that's what it is, perhaps it's not. I'm not 100% sure, but it could be. Also, this would imply that the seelies themselves are either aeons themselves, or aeons divided, or aeons recycled. But either way, they're a celestial being that would be considered aeons inside of Gnosticism. And one last thing, even though I said this one last time, some people missed it. It's that, what's the forbidden knowledge? It's not only the origin story of how things came into creation, and therefore the demiurge is lying about everything that he's saying inside of Genshin, because he did not come first. He did not create everything. Everything he created from those elements that came out of Sophia when she was all destroyed and all that energy was discharging out of her. That earth, fire, wind, and water that she created, those raw elements, this is the material that the demiurge and his archons used to create everything that's in existence that we know of. But he doesn't want us to know this knowledge, because then it looks like he's not all powerful, he's not the overall creator. It makes Sophia look like she's the overall creator. And when you realize Sophia is not even at the top of the pyramid, she's at the bottom of it, that's even more mind-blowing, because how little does that make the demiurge in this case? He's below the pyramid. So this is not only the forbidden knowledge, but also to add on to the forbidden knowledge is the fact that we have the ability to become just as powerful as the demiurge himself, which he definitely doesn't want us to know this, because we would be able to break the cycle, we'll be able to break the chains he put us on, to break the delusion we're influenced by, and gain gnosis and ascend out of here. And he needs praise, he needs acceptance, he needs to feel powerful and to keep us in his toy box. He's the child god. He's not supposed to have some great maleficent purpose. It's just simply greed and ego and stuff like this. He's supposed to be very simple-minded because he's supposed to be very young. Anyway, that's about it for now, guys. Thanks for watching, and I hope to see you next time.